The NCR Plus bubble is now under the more lenient Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ. New curfew hours are also in effect in Metro Manila starting today. More people are dying from COVID-19 in the metro. The OCTA research team says the death rate in the region has jumped to over 2%. 500,000 more doses of SinoVac shots arrived in Manila on Sunday. As the hashtag Nasaan ang Pangulo trends online, President Duterte's camp releases photos of him jogging, riding a motorcycle, and playing golf. And in sports, the Philippines will host the third and final window of the FIBA Asia Cup Qualifiers. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day. I'm Charles Lejano. Kicking off today's newscast with the government easing quarantine restrictions for the rest of April. The NCR Plus bubble, as well as Santiago City in Isabela and the provinces of Quirino and Abra are now under modified enhanced community quarantine. While the Cordilleras, Cagayan, and the rest of Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya are placed under general community quarantine. The same goes for the whole of the Batangas and Quezon Province, as well as Tacloban City, Iligan City, Davao City, and Lanao del Sur. On the other hand, the rest of the Philippines is still under modified general community quarantine or MECQ. NCR mayors have also revised the unified curfew hours in the metro. Starting today, curfew hours in the region will be at 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. for the rest of the month. However, MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos explained that local chiefs can still adjust curfew hours within their localities, while authorized persons outside residence remain exempted from curfew. New COVID-19 infections in the country continue to rise even during the last day of the 2-week ECQ. The Health Department logged over 112,000 new cases yesterday, bringing the total tally of active cases to more than 145,000. That's about 17% of the current total caseload. Meanwhile, 201 more people died from COVID-19, pushing the country's death toll to nearly 15,000. Notably, some 55,000 COVID patients recovered as of yesterday. That is the highest single-day recoveries reported by the Health Department since the pandemic started. The OCTA research group is flagging a spike in COVID-19 deaths in Metro Manila. This as the average COVID-19 cases in the region has dropped from the previous week. For the second week of April, the reproduction rate of COVID-19 in NCR was recorded at 1.24. OCTA says this is around 15% lower compared to the cases reported during the previous week. However, the group clarifies that it is still too early to say whether the region is experiencing a downtrend of cases. On the other hand, OCTA says the case fatality rate in NCR has jumped to over 2% from 1.8% recorded last October. This means that more people are dying due to the coronavirus disease. Experts add that based on the current data, almost half of the projected deaths are aged 64 and below. The PNP says they have recorded over 47,000 quarantine violations, all within the 2 weeks of ECQ in the NCR Plus bubble. PNP spokesperson Ildebrandi Osana said the violators were caught at quarantine control areas and police checkpoints. Police data shows that over 24,000 individuals were caught not wearing face shields, while some 2,500 were cited for failure to wear face masks. Others were given warnings for not complying with policies on mass gatherings and physical distancing, but Osana said the police force has not made any arrests related to these violations.
All in all, we have this number, 47,149. However, dito po sa mga nag-violate, wala naman po mga na-aresto. Karamihan po sa kanila ay binigyan lang po ng karapatang warning, and others were fined based po sa mga local government unit ordinances.
Osana reiterated that the death of a quarantine violator in Cavite was an isolated case. Recall that in Peña Redondo died shortly after being forced to do hundreds of pumping exercises for violating curfew. Osana also said that the chief of police of General Trias and the 2 police officers who meted out the punishment have already been relieved from their post pending investigation. Osana reminds police officers to be careful in enforcing grave punishments, stressing that the PNP does not tolerate such abuse of authority.
So we are not tolerating this kind at rest assured kung meron man pong mga ilang mamamayan na nakaranas ng hindi dapat na naayon sa mga ordinances o ano pa mang batas na pinairal during this period of MECQ, ito po ay bibigyan pansin ng Philippine National Police.
We'll be back with more stories after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. As the country continues to grapple with the effects of the pandemic, President Rodrigo Duterte is seen doing leisure activities within Malacanang. A lawmaker close to the president uploaded photos and videos of him jogging to prove that he is healthy. This as the hashtag Nasaan ang Pangulo once again trended online. In the same post, Duterte is seen playing golf in the middle of the night. The former presidential aide also uploaded videos of the president while taking a luxury motorcycle out for a spin. Recall that just last week, the chief executive opted to forego his weekly address amid an outbreak of COVID-19 among PSG personnel. However, he is expected to address the nation today following the recent changes in quarantine rules. One health expert from Johns Hopkins University says crowd interactions, especially those indoors, are still the biggest COVID-19 worry. Let's find out why in this Bloomberg interview.
Less about density and it's more about the interactions you have. So obviously in dense places, you're more likely to come in contact with people. But I think increasingly we're finding that it's not just these casual interactions. It's really, sitting inside of a restaurant with somebody that's not inside of your family without your masks on. Really crowded indoor spaces are our biggest worry.
What about crowded outdoor spaces, including 38,000 watching the Texas Rangers a few days ago?
Yeah, so that's not great. I mean, outdoor spaces are generally safer, but when you pack people right next to each other and they're sitting there for a long time, basically breathing and yelling in each other's faces, that's really a high risk for transmission.
So is a concern here that the more people who get infected in the United States, especially with the new variant, the higher the threshold to reach some sort of herd immunity, that more of the population has to be inoculated?
Well, the concern here is just that we have vaccines now that can prevent people from, getting sick. And so at this point, anybody who gets sick and worse, anybody who's hospitalized from this virus, I mean, it's a particular tragedy because we know now that this is a vaccine preventable illness. So we'd like people to not get sick until we can reach them with a vaccine. So that's really the urgency here. We're going to reach some level of immunity either through the natural infections that people are experiencing or the vaccine. I would really prefer the vaccine because each additional person that gets sick, there's a probability that we could have additional loss of life.
There's a sense that things are going to get better. The pandemic will end. It is sort of just the path there, as you say. I do wonder, though, how much some of the turmoil around the AstraZeneca vaccine slows the progress of getting to the end of the pandemic. Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, I'm really worried about that. I mean, I think here in the United States, we're in much better circumstances. We've been rolling out vaccines really quickly, and we're not dependent on AstraZeneca at this point. But other countries are wholly dependent on it. So the fact that there are, supply issues in terms of countries preventing exports, as well as, perhaps countries being not willing to use the vaccine because of some of the recent safety concerns. In my view, the safety concerns have to be balanced against the risk of infection, which at this point globally is very high. So I'm worried about that. I mean, we need all resources on the table right now to bring this pandemic to an end.
500,000 more doses of SinoVac shots arrived in Manila from Beijing yesterday. Officials led by the NTF Chief Implementer Carlito Galvez welcomed the arrival of the vaccines at the NAIA. Galvez said this latest delivery is part of the 25 million doses secured by the government from the Chinese pharmaceutical company. The vaccines were brought straight to the Metro cold storage facility in Marikina City, and more SinoVac shots are expected to arrive, with 1.5 million doses arriving later this month and another 2 million in May. Now it's official. The Philippines will be hosting the remaining games for the FIBA Asia Cup 2021 qualifiers along with Jordan. The games of Groups A, B, and C will be played at the Clark City Bubble from June 16 to June 20. Gilas Pilipinas is under Group A along with Korea, Indonesia, and Thailand. Meanwhile, the games of Groups E and F will take place in Amman, Jordan from June 12 to 14. Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas President Al Panlilio says they are working closely with FIBA to ensure the safety of all athletes inside the bubble. He also assured delegates and fans that they have complied with all the safety requirements of Philippine authorities for holding of sports events. Here are the stories to watch out for later today. A new round of Balikatan exercises begins. 700 American and 1,000 Filipino soldiers are set to participate in the activity. As for the latest in the West Philippine Sea, at least 28 Chinese ships were spotted near Julian Felipe Reef over the weekend. AFP Chief Cirilito Sobejana says these include 20 fishing vessels, 6 Coast Guard, and 2 militia ships. And here in Metro Manila, new bus and jeepney routes are set to open, while the PNR finally resumes operations after a 2-week break. And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us later at 10 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.